Slowness. Why slowness? Considering climate changes, the dramatic and fast increase of destruction of our ecosystems, the overconsumptions of goods of all kinds, and the dependence on technology in our daily lives, it has become more than urgent as a human being to slow down, return to nature, and make conservation of nature a priority. It has become urgent to return to a more rooted and simple lifestyle. But what does it mean to slow down? Taking time, taking our time for doing things, taking times to think and to breathe. What's the effect of slowing down on the senses, the perceptions, the nervous systems, the wellness, well-being? Somewhere, somehow, we have lost the sense of what it means to live in a simply and a balanced way. Our immersive dance creation, K as Kalos, Eidos, Kopein, and L as liberation, examine deeply these few but absolutely fundamental elements. For this creation, we experiment in returning to basic but powerful element for our training methods and creative process. Basic elements as walking and, of course, slowness. Thank you. And by the way, there's absolutely no slow motion effect in the video excerpt you will see in the next 30 minutes. So, enjoy.
From the start, slowness seemed to be with us. The team and I sought to make our creative experience and that of the audiences a moment of calm. It would be a time and space to slow down, to breathe, and to settle in. An experience where we could still the mad rush and stress of everyday life. In other words, it would be a pause, a suspension, a truce. We quickly understood that to achieve this, we had to find a concrete way to reduce the pace of things, slowing down the performance in order to slow the experience of time for the performers as well as for the spectators. We also realized that slowness takes time, a lot of time. So we had to give ourselves that time. Giving and taking time became the keystone for the process of our two creations, K, Kalos, Eidos, Kopein, and L, liberation. We gave priority to ion, open time, unmeasurable and unmeasured, always suspended between two instants, as opposed to chronos, the structured, calculated, and compressed time that we know so well. Taking and giving time, not only in doing, but also in receiving. Movements, sounds, images, colors, textures, and the presence of performers and spectators. dwelling on the plurality of micro-variations that intersect these elements in order to experience infinity through a simple gesture or a sound. To seize and grasp vastness within the minute, and to sense infinity in the smallest of things. Rediscovering the pleasure and enchantment of refined reduction. Allowing weight in the body, in the real and conceptual sense, giving weight to each movement, creating strong, deeply rooted, almost imperturbable corporalities. In our universe of two faces, choosing the other face, the one of decelerating temporality reaching near immobility, the Janus point of all movements. The work of artist Alexandra Dementieva reminded us recently that we have over 40 senses. Neurophysiologist Alain Berthoz insists on the importance of our sense of movement and the bodily references we are building every moment. Thus, with Slowness, explored in a conscious, deep way, the interconnectedness of all these senses explores the multiplicities of this bodily data. In a sense, taking time to broaden perceptual capacities, not only those of the performer, but also of the creative team and audience, through empathy, osmosis, resonance, or simply by paying attention. It is impossible to discover the enigmatic depth of beings and things swiftly or in haste. An enhanced experience by the simple choice of opting for an extended temporality, stretching on all sides. It requires both a strong presence and concentration to manage one's weight with extreme slowness and synchrony, both on infinitely small details as well as things greater than oneself. In addition to a significant physical commitment, in order to achieve this, we returned to walking. Walking as the first dance movement. Walking as a constant dynamic between balance and imbalance. We spent months, even years, breaking down to the smallest detail what constitutes putting one foot in front of the other. How weight travels and is distributed in each series of movements. Taking and giving weight. Transferring it from one area of the body to another, and understanding from your own body, as well as through the body of others, how to play with weight in extreme slowness. Finally, allowing the movement to happen without thinking about it, remaining constantly and totally aware of your body without judgment, and above all, to interrupt the involvement of cognitive and discriminative thinking. A peripheral and internal gaze works better for me at this moment. Direct gaze takes me out of my state. Direct gaze changes how I listen because my attention becomes focused on one thing and not the whole environment. I have to accept that an internal gaze is not a closing off, but rather another way of hearing, because what I am receiving is not necessarily visible. paying attention to the slightest fluctuations in breath, the muscles and skin, the constant evolution of the foot in gait, the tiny oscillations of the head and gaze, the speed of the blink of the eye, the gradual release of the weight of the body to the ground, and its rising back up just as gradual. Softly lingering on the forming of relationships between bodies, between them, between bodies, space, sound, and images, bodies and audience. Capture every little moment of movement and savor all its subtleties. Density does not need to be induced. It is a consequence of slowness, of presence, of all that is beyond me. Concentration must radiate in a movement outside of me, like the sun. Suspend time in order to give people a chance to see, hear, and experience delusion becoming, its slow onset, its transformation, its fading. Suspend time to bring a state of full presence, a state of flow as described by Csikszentmihalyi. I experienced an impression of slowness and the impression of traveling by boat over water. The sounds of water, the images, and the slowness of the dancers made me feel good. I had the impression of meditating. This experience, so different from everyday life, reminded me of a state of contemplation that I experience sometimes while dreaming. Playful and curious exploration with the body, altering perception, peacefully disoriented and disorienting to the other. Declining the slowness in 1,000 minute gradations and nuances, leaving it to better and constantly return. Thus we dive in head first, eyes closed, into a highly sophisticated technology, the human body, our body, the body of others, with finesse, consistency, simplicity. The fact of having so much time to see the details close up made me feel empathy and friendship for the artists. The mesmerizing memory of the music and the slow movements made me feel a bit altered, like in a dream. During the performance, I felt captivated by the movement of the dancers. I enjoyed the slowness that they put into walking, as well as the quality of presence they exuded. It inspired me to adopt the same attitude of contemplation and concentration. Slowness thus appears as a philosophy of action, as a response to the constant acceleration of our lives, as a poetic relationship to time, a resistance mode, an invitation to see and experience the world differently. Slowness as bodily silence, a way of life, a way of expression, a way of creative drive. Motion, no emotion, said the choreographer Alwin Nicolaius. They were inhabited differently. It allowed me to simply be in a state of reception, because they completed each other in emotions that I could have experienced, as if they experienced the emotions for me and liberated me from my own. I was really into the slowness. I would have liked to follow them and do it with them. White decor, colorful images, sounds of nature, just the kind of thing I like. The elements. Nature, slowness, the present moment, energy flowing through the body like Tai Chi. Transcendence greater than the self. It makes me feel reassured and peaceful. No need to do anything. Life is happening and it flows.
Hi, my name is Bruno Pucella, and I'm the sound designer for both pieces K, Kalos, Eidos, Kopein, and L Liberation. Before diving into the sound design concept, I would like to share with you how I incorporated slowness into my creative process. I'm from the film industry, doing sound design for film and TV for over 20 years now. And in film, we don't have a lot of time to work. To do a feature, for example, it could require 6 to 8 weeks of sound design, Foley recordings, and heading to the mix when we'll have like 2 weeks to finish the project. With Andrée, and that's common in most performing arts, we have several months to work actually. And to be able to listen over several months like that can bring you in a nice contemplative state of mind. In the contrary, when I work with Andrée on K and L, they were created without having in mind a specific length for the final product. It was mostly a work in progress, no boundaries in that matter. So each collaborator were working all along the creation of the piece together, meaning I was there at the beginning trying to work on the soundtrack. The person doing the lighting was there too. The dancer were doing with Andrée, working on the choreography. So we were like all step at a time, all together in parallels. It's like a resonance. Something from the lighting conception can create for me a certain effects, so I would like to develop it in the soundtrack. Same thing for him actually. If I did something, it sounds like I can create a special light for that. And when I started changing my soundtrack, sometime I could tell looking at the dancer, okay, maybe there's something not exactly right, or that changed the rhythm too. So we were able to adjust each other after each session. To work in the same space where the spectator will be listening to the piece was really interesting too. So you get into the flow and you know in which flow the spectator will be as well. So that was really inspiring and a good way show us where to go, where to arrive with the project. In the Lavi there was like 18 speakers to recreate like an immersion, because immersion was really important to the piece. So when you have so many sources of sound, it's really important to think in matter of movement. So it's important to take the time to be at the center and to listen to how the movement is flowing in the space. And so that space was really, really good for us to be able to judge the effects or everything we did. And Andrée gave us a lot of space to create. Like a bit of jazz improv, she gave us the basic guidelines, kind of a canvas in a way, and each collaborator had the space to create into that, to propose something to have the piece going forward. So this slowness that is intrinsic to Drupad is found in the basics of the choreography that was starting to take shape during every session. So for me, doing the soundtrack, I had to figure out how to tell a story of slowness. So I let myself be impregnated by this rhythm of the music, the slowness of it, of the dancers and the choreography that had the same rhythm, of course, and to dive in this immersive state and this immersive space as the La Vie, to be the first spectator in a way. So I needed to find where to start. And I look into the Indian music, and the first instrument that you will hear in the music composition is the tempura. So the tempura is a string instrument that produces a drone. A drone like a rumble, like earthquake, that's the most common drone. There are several pitch, but usually it's very low frequency bass. Therefore, a sustained tone, there's no melody, it's not percussive, gives a tonal reference, and all the instrumentalists or the singers tunes up to it. So in Kaleidoscope, nature was established in a slow exhibition, of course, helping to instill a contemplative state to the spectators and a feeling of abandonment before slowly morphing into the tempura. Once the tempura is established, which unfolds in the sound space, the raga can begin. A very slow first tuning movement, Yalap, the first one. In Liberation, the idea was to take the proposition from K a bit further, well, even a lot further. So we decided to expand time even more. So to start, before nature was formed, we had to go to the origin of the universe. So I created this deep ocean of low frequency and drones, dance. I call it a cosmic soup, a bit of reference from Uber Eats. This omnipresence of low frequency and bass envelops the viewer, the spectator, so he can almost feel the sound. It vibrates on the floor, on him. So, in a way, it's an occasion to be tuned as a spectator with the dancer, with the proposition, with the piece, with the space, to bring him in an immersive state. This time, the path to bring us to the tempura starts from this sound magma, which fixes itself in little sound waves that develop each together to reveal the tempura. Become sounds of nature as well, drops of water, birds, and we can hear a first human song. We use Vedic chant. That's a really, really old Indian chant. In the same way, like to follow the story from the beginning of nature, beginning of sound, beginning of human chant. I have to say I'm truly grateful that I was able to take this opportunity to explore and create in a space like the La Vie. It's a unique experience to have the space, time, to pursue artistic research like that. It's really important to have places like this in universities and available to everyone that wants to explore in performing arts. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Armando Menicacci and I work with Andrée Martin at La Vie. La Vie is Laboratoire Art Vivant et Interdisciplinarité, which means a lab that is, its focus is live art and interdisciplinarity. And it's a way for us to look for another way of researching live arts. The La Vie is where all the research on slowness has been done and is continuing to be done. It's a theater, it's a 250-seat theater that is below the dance department at UQAM. It was founded by the FCI, the Foundation, Canadian Foundation for Innovation. But this black box, these rails allow us to pull all the curtains and to have, instead of a black box, we can also have a white box, which means that once we pull the black curtain, we have behind that also 4 big screens, 11 by 6.5 meters in height. But also we can have all the in-betweens. We can have 1 screen, we can have 2 screens, 3 screens, 4 screens, and a black box. So everything is possible, and so it is a very adaptable space to presence, to digital work with interactivity on stage. So the La Vie is a laboratory and a theory dedicated to research creations that we wanted to be in ecological conditions of research, which means that research has to be done, research on live art and on theater, on dance and on digital arts and interactivity has to be done in the space with real lights, with real condition of research, which are called ecological conditions of research, because generally research on these kind of things, on the interpreter and on the feeling of the spectators, are done generally in scientific labs with low ceiling, with neon lights, and in place which is not the place where art happens. So we designed an immersive environment with quadrifrontal video and audio. So this means that we have 8.2 channels of audio suspended around to make immersive and 360 sound. And same thing for the images. Everything is controlled by a central server that serves sound and video. It's connected on the internet, and I can control it from anywhere in the world, even with my phone. But this is to do what? What are we doing in the La Vie? We have several objects of study. The first one is the presence. Presence on stage is still a mystery. Its qualities and its sensory motor organization is still to be studied a lot. So we want to focus on that first. But then we want to focus also on the impact of the presence on the public. So on the receiving side, what happens on the spectator side? We want to study the sensory motor organization of the expressive corporeality, but also transdisciplinary immersive art creation in this adaptable space. We base that on relationship between art, science, psychology, and health. So that is the main focus. We look at our art objects from different perspectives. And at last, we also want to study interactions and interactivity, what happens in the relationship between a body, a machine, a body and an image, a body and a sound. On the scientific side, we have scientific sensors by Biopac. We use also for the qualitative analysis the T-Lab Plus, the software that allows the text analysis of the qualitative data. And for the quantitative, so we have, as I said, this set of sensors and the software acknowledged by Biopac. All of this is also connected to the Noldus XT Observer, very important software that allows us to analyze human and animal behavior. Thank you very much.